Hello and welcome to the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors. This week we speak to Dave Pratte from Speed Academy. Kyle drives a cool German car. We compare some hybrid family haulers, and it's Groundhog Day as we talk about EVs and tariffs. But first, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love. Okay, so kicking things off, we will talk about a comparison that Kyle and I did a week or two ago, and it is the Kia Carnival hybrid versus the Toyota Sienna hybrid.
Yes, although I guess the Sienna has just been hybrid only for years. Yeah, but I mean, they're the two. There's only 4 real minivans left on the market, but these are the two that are regular hybrid. We're not including the Pacifica because it's a plug-in and that's a little different.
It's a lot more money. Well, maybe not more than the Sienna.
Yeah, as we learned doing this comparison, so Kia has been the value play for years. That's part of the brand's appeal, and that's still the case for the Carnival. Even with the hybrid, it's only, I think it's like $2,000 more-ish to get the hybrid, which makes sense because you're getting 40 to 50% better gas mileage. You own it for 5 years, it's already paid for itself. And that's not assuming that the resale is also going to be better. It's a few $1,000s more affordable than this top trim Sienna in the US, which is, fine, whatever. The Sienna does have a few more features and all-wheel drive and blah, blah, blah. But the gap in Canada is like $14,000. This is a $72,000 minivan in Canada.
And when we did the comparison, we fully agreed. The Sienna drives nicer. The hybrid system obviously gets better fuel economy. It performs a little better, but louder. But the inside maybe isn't as stylish as the Kia. Well, it isn't, but it's way more useful, which is sort of what minivans are meant to be. So it's one of those cases. Is it enough to overcome the price difference? And in the States, I think probably, yeah. But in Canada, no. That's a huge gap.
Yeah. And I think maybe, in terms of the initial price gap in both countries, if you went down one trim with the Sienna, you still get most of the toys that are in this one, or at least some of them are optional too. So I think that's a good play. And in fact, for a while in Canada, that was the top trim, was the Limited. The Platinum's new for us. So yeah, I think you summed it up really well at the end too, is if you want a if you need a minivan and you want a minivan, then yeah, the Sienna makes tons of sense. It is designed for family use. It's so practical with all the storage and stuff inside. But if you need a minivan and don't necessarily want a minivan, the Carnival does make a lot of sense. It's the most SUV-like of all the remaining minivans.
Do they still call it a LUV in Canada, the life utility vehicle, and an MPV in the States?
They do. Yeah, they're sticking with that.
Refuse to call it a minivan. I don't know. It's a box with sliding doors and 3 rows. It's whatever. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
So next, you got to drive the 550e xDrive, and you called it the discount M5.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of a layout, it's pretty close. You're just getting a turbo inline 6 plug-in hybrid instead of a turbo V8. So in that sense, yeah, it's an M5 with training wheels. That seems mean. It's weird because you look
as much as an M5.
Not quite as much because it doesn't have a V8. It's still hefty, but like the regular M5, it doesn't drive as heavy as the curb weight suggests, right? Like that's something that I think we've talked about recently, where curb weights are a little. It's hard to judge them apples to apples these days with EVs and with plugins because they're a lot heavier, but that weight is so low down that you don't notice the effects as much as if you added 500 pounds elsewhere. So
and it's spread too, right? Like it's almost a 50-50. It's not like the 70s Cadillacs with a 7-liter iron V8 up front that's just destroying any handling capabilities.
Yeah, you don't have a smart car's worth of weight just over the nose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, overall, it's on paper, this is a very good car. I love this powertrain in the X5. It has a smaller battery here because it's a car, so it doesn't need or have the space to fit as big of a battery, but it still gets something like 40 miles on electric power, so it's plenty good for that. My issue is that the Diet M5 thing, I don't mean just from the plug-in hybrid powertrain. I mean this thing rides way too stiffly for what it is. Um, it comes with the M Sport Pack as standard in both Canada and the US, and I think that is the tripping point for this car, because otherwise it drives really smoothly. That inline six is fantastic. You've driven it in a few vehicles. Like, we've all experienced the BMW most famous engine as far as I'm concerned. The V8s are great, but this is BMW at its best. The plug-in is integrated really well. You don't have any juddering. It's such a good setup, and it's ruined by a stiff ride. I think if you could just get the regular 5 Series suspension, this would be such a great all-round car. And I really like that the Press Fleet team spec this one in macadamia metallic. It is a $5,000 option, but or brown cars.
Yeah, I like the look of the 5 Series, like just in its own. Never mind compared to the 3-4 Series.
Oh yeah,
Which is like if we could get rid of the chrome around the grill, it'd be okay. But I don't know. It's not. Maybe it's just because of how much the 3 and 4 are polarizing. Back to your the most famous inline six. We should do a BMW 3-liter inline six feature and get like a Grenadier, a Supra, something from BMW.
can
all
we?
the places you, all the places you can get it from.
Yeah, the inline six on the road, on the trail, on the track. Yeah, I feel a fun story coming along.
So last question: how does the ride compare to the GR Corolla? Because that is the stiffest riding thing I've driven recently.
It's probably not as bad as a GR Corolla, let's be honest. I haven't driven one since last summer. But and it's definitely quieter in terms of hearing the suspension.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fidgety, I think, is the best way to describe it, right? Like, I live in the city, so I had to deal with a lot of potholes and stuff, and it's always moving around. It settles pretty quickly. On back roads, of course, it's pretty agile. I thought this had rear axle steering, and it didn't.
That's yeah, interesting. That's like what Kias and Hyundais used to be like. I always found like they're a little too stiff and they got really fidgety over bumps. The GR Corolla, I won't give it away because we're talking about it next week, but it's the only car, maybe ever, but definitely recently, where both my wife and my son made multiple comments on different roads. Why is it so bouncy? This is so bad. So anyway. Moving on. So we didn't do this. We had our freelancer Jeremy go drive the 2025 heavy duty Ram. I mean, this is way outside of our wheelhouse. I read his review. Oh, well, actually, you've driven them. So last one. So you can compare. So basically, the big news is the diesel, which I don't know what the percentage is, but it's got to be like at least 3/4 of them come diesel. They dropped the low power output, so you only get the high power. So it's like 4 something horsepower and over 1,000 pound-feet of torque, which is ridiculous. And the 6 speed's also been ditched for the 8 speed. So basically, it's gonna probably get better fuel economy and be quicker. Just what you need in a 8,000 pound truck.
Yeah, in a giant moving building.
And I will say that the styling hasn't really changed dramatically since like '94, but. No. This is still the best looking big truck, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I mean, there's only the 3 choices: the Chevy, well, 4. Chevy and GMC are.
I don't mind the GMC, but the Chevy doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, and Fords, I don't know, probably because I just see the heavy duties everywhere. I don't dislike the heavy duty, but yeah, I agree. Like, this is handsome, and it's weird to refer to anything with such a giant grille as like subdued, but the Ram is the closest in my mind to being subdued because they've worked with a large grille since they introduced it to the segment, and I feel like they've integrated it a lot better. Whereas, brands like Toyota, this giant goatee of a grill. So yeah, this looks good.
Yeah, and just make sure no little kids or whoever are in front, because that's a giant blind spot from that giant grill.
Yeah, although I will say, based on the last time I drove one, which was 2 or 3 years ago, it is weirdly easy to drive the 2500s anyway these days, right? Like, it's not much of a difference to the 1500s. There's a lot of assists, which I think is good. I know some people will complain about them, but look, if more and more people are buying trucks, which seems to be the reality we're in, I want them to at least feel comfortable and confident behind the wheel, and more assists to make that possible sounds like a win to me.
Yeah, 3500s from like 20 years ago felt like more of a like big truck, like
Yeah.
a commercial truck than a vehicle, whereas it's changed. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, Mazda has announced they are going to be making some new engines, or they've at least announced what the new engines will be, and they're rolling back a bit of their EV spending. So we'll start with the engines. They are going to be called Skyactiv Z, and it will replace the Skyactiv G and the Skyactiv X.
We skipped a lot of letters there.
Yeah, it will debut in the next CX-5, which I found interesting because they said, I mean, maybe they mean CX-50, but maybe the CX-5, as we've always said, sells so well they just can't kill it.
Yep.
In like late 27, and it'll be a 2.5 like they have now, and it'll be hybrid, and it'll be in-house hybrid. I mean, they may still use parts from other manufacturers, but they're actually sort of like Subaru. They're going to integrate someone else's parts. Yeah. They're into their system. I mean, maybe they're doing their own. I don't know, but they've sort of recommitted or doubled up on the slow of gas. I mean, it is hybrid, so it's not full gas. And then the second part of the story, the EV spend that they had invested was 10 point something billion, and they've rolled it back to 7. So it's not like they're abandoning it, but they've kind of clawed back about 30% of their spend. And the best news is the rotary is still coming to the US, but it's going to be a range extender, but it'll be a dual rotor range extender. So I am waiting for the first tuner to somehow pull that out of a vehicle and try to make it the sole power plant and something else.
Put it in. Actually, you know what? Just bring the MX-30 and have some crazy tuner just remove the EV aspect and stick the rotary in as the main power source, and you have a tiny little RX-8 doored little city car with whatever. Yeah,
that's what the RX-8 would probably be if it stuck around, because everything went SUV.
It'd be an SUV now. Yeah. I mean, how do I say this delicately? Because I really like the CX-5. I like a lot of Mazda products. Their EVs weren't very good, or at least the first one. So winding back the spending maybe seems like a smart move because it was such a niche item, but also it's like, how are you going to get better? I don't know.
I think they're rolling it back in accordance to just the demand that's in every market. It's not going full EV, so they figure, we still need to have some money in gas because, I mean, North America specifically, and Japan, it seems too, the EVs aren't catching on like they should have been.
I was going to say, it's like Japan doesn't have a strong EV market yet, and North America, of course, is trying to move backwards as quickly as possible. So, it does make sense. And I mean, investing in a new engine for your best-selling model also kind of makes sense. It's like, you're not going to replace the CX-5 is not going to become an EV. Like, an EV is not going to dominate the RAV4 segment for a long time. So yeah, cool. Good news for
Mazda. And the way they build their platforms is they're so modular. So like, that exact drivetrain will go in the next 3 and go in the next CX-30 and everything, but basically the big 90 we'll get it. So
so on that note, I haven't read this, but did they confirm that it will be both naturally aspirated and turbocharged?
No, they just said hybrid.
Okay, because the Turbo 2.5 is in everything right now, and we could use a new one.
If they, like you said, I mean, we have no idea what they're using, but let's say they use Toyota parts. We'll throw that out there. If they put it with their 2.5 and get similar output, that'll be like around the 220, 230. They probably don't need the turbo, but
yeah, that's true.
And if they do end up bringing out this rumored for like a decade sedan based on the CX-90 that's going to have the inline 6 turbo rear wheel drive, then you kind of have the sporty side, but we will
I
see.
thought they killed that. I thought that
They
was
killed it, then you
confirmed
hear
that
it might come back.
yeah, it's like
It's like
the
the Rotary, right?
RX-9. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on to another company talking about EVs. This seems to be the thing. So um, GM, the headline's a little misleading, but GM has said with their Cadillac division, they're not going to go full EV by 2030 like they had been planning.
Yeah.
They realized that's just not feasible. I think they looked at their Escalade sales, and even their sedans keep going up. Like they went up, I think 8.8% in market share last year. Like they're getting some momentum. So they have 5 EVs if you count the Escalade IQ and IQL as separate models,
No.
which they are, which it isn't. So they have that, but it's kind of sounds like they're going to kind of keep those vehicles going and update that, and then on the other side they'll still have their Escalade, their sedans, and probably some form of a gas-powered smaller SUV of some kind. I don't know if they'll replace the 4, the 5, or the 6, but just sort of like Mazda, they're reacting to what the market's doing, and they're even more North America focused, and their buyers, I think, are less likely to be EV. I know their EV strategy was to acquire new buyers, and it's good they have it, but they can't ignore their, traditional buyers of the last 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is just one person's opinion, and it's because of location, but I'm seeing a ton of lyrics around lately, and you and I both really enjoyed the lyric. So if they're pulling new customers in with their EVs, great, and if they're keeping existing customers happy with gas, cool. Oh, Teddy.
Yeah, Teddy's making an appearance. Anyway, I agree. And who knows what they could do with the Escalade in the future? Like maybe you get some sort of hybrid drivetrain. The V8s that GM make are still great, and they're fairly efficient. Like I think in real world, they're no worse than any of these turbo 6s that they compete against. So
it's a good point. I'm very curious, about what the Escalade means versus V8 and full EV. Like I wonder if there's any sort of comparison that maybe someone could do about both of those. I don't know.
Maybe one day.
Maybe.
So moving on back to the tariffs, and this is something I think we've kind of touched on, and it's already happening. I think it'll happen more. Honda is reached out, or they've already made an agreement with Toyota to make batteries for their EVs out of Toyota's battery plant that's being made in the U.S. to avoid tariffs. And I think we'll see more of this. Remember back in the day, Subaru and Toyota split the plant in Indiana. It was Camrys on one side, it was Outbacks and Legacies on the other. I could see more of that, where how right now in North America, Mexico makes all the cars for whatever, US all the cars for this, in Canada. They won't want to necessarily export, so they will be like half capacity. Like let's say the Civic plant in Canada. If it's only making Civics for Canada and I don't know, let's say Mexico, but not the US, then they're going to have a ton of extra capacity. So maybe someone who makes cars only in the States wants to make some there to avoid the counter tariffs that are put in place. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny that these giant multinational corporations are doing more to save people money than the government. But anyway. do.
Or like I said, I can see a lot of plants going flex. I mean, in Ontario where we live, a lot of them already are that. So where they make the Civic, you make it flex that it can make CRVs and Accords, then you can satisfy Canada and some other foreign markets.
And there is, like, using Subaru as an example, there's a lot more common elements to modern vehicles than there used to be 20 years ago. Like being able to flex from one model to the next based on demand is, I mean, I'm probably oversimplifying, but it seems a lot easier now than it did in the 90s when like every car had its entirely own dedicated platform and different engine layouts and stuff. Like Subaru, everything is on the same platform. Everything uses one of 2 engines, 3, not counting the sports cars.
If you don't count the BRZ, it's 2. Oh no, it's 3. The 2 liter still kicking around. Yeah, and they make half their model lineup is now made in Indiana, so they're already doing it. And like GM here has been doing it forever. Where I remember, I mean, a lot of the cars are dead, but way back in the day, if you went to the Oshawa plant, it was like Camaro, Impala, truck, or not truck, like Equinox, and those 3 cars were so different from each other, but that's how it rolled. So
yeah.
Anyway, and I think that is it. It is for the news and reviews of the week. We are going to take a quick break on the Auto Guide show brought to you by eBay Motors. I will be back with Greg to talk winter gloves. I know winter's almost over, but we got teased with spring last week, and this week it said nope, snow's coming back. So
yeah, you always get like one little last grasp of winter.
Yeah, and then after that, I will be back with Kyle, and we are talking to Dave Pratte, as I mentioned at the start, and then Colin and I will be on with the F1 news. But first, a very short break from our sponsor. Swapping out your tires? There's nothing like it. With eBay, you'll find the feel you're looking for, from smooth highway rides to grip for rough terrain. Get all the tires you need at prices you'll love. eBay, things people love. All right, welcome back. We have Greg join us again to talk about some products and listings. What do you have for us this week?
So we have, we're going to talk about driving gloves, winter gloves, driving gloves. They can sort of overlap a little bit, but I know we've already gotten a little bit into like spring products and car washes, but I mean, I don't know. It snowed this week here in Michigan, so it just felt like, hey, we got to do this one more time, right?
Yeah, it's the whole never expect spring too early. There's always going to be that cold snap in April, maybe a snowstorm in March. So, and even just some mornings up until like May, it's chilly. So I myself don't have specific winter gloves for driving, but I do have thinner gloves that I use when I drive because, yeah, your big, thick snow shoveling gloves are not fun driving with, especially trying to steer and change gears. So what do you recommend as some of the good choices?
Well, I have a couple of ones on here. I don't have these exact ones, but number 5 on this list, Pierre Cardin leather gloves. I actually really like driving leather gloves. It's a little bit of that old school kind of racing vibe. I have ones very similar to this. They're good for gripping the steering wheel, especially if you're driving like an older car where maybe the feedback is a little sort of numb, on center. So it's like, hey, wear some gloves, kind of tightens things up a little bit. I also will wear, this is going to sound hilarious, not on the list. I actually like to wear those little stretchy gloves. They're kind of like knit wool or whatever, just because they keep my hands warm. And once you're in the car and things heat up, I mean, hey, there you go. That'll kind of keep things ready. I actually have kind of bad circulation too, so that I think helps out. And then I also like these, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this, but it looks like E7 winter lambskin gloves. You can get those all sorts of places. I have one like this actually from pretty similar from Macy's, actually. Again, I'm not actually a formal guy, but leather gloves, I think they had a nice kind of, they level up whatever you're wearing, especially outside. And I think they had that nice degree of grippiness as well. And I think it also helps because, again, you come in from shoveling snow, your gloves are wet, maybe they're salty, maybe a little bit of a snowball fight with your kids. That's great. It's nice to have something a little bit better for the car. So those are the ones I like the most.
And the nice thing with the leather gloves too, like we've been talking about, is they grip better. And if you have a non-leather, you have some sort of other material. You want to have some sort of grip on the palm because wet or dry, when the wheel's cold and your gloves are cold, it easily can slip out. And in winter driving, that's probably the last thing you want to do is to not have control of your car.
That's funny. The knit gloves, which actually don't offer a ton of like grip, as you mentioned, we do have those on our list. I misspoke. They're right on here. So if that's what you want to do, by all means, wear the knit gloves. But again, they're not going to give you the best grip. It's more kind of like, hey, you just need to keep your fingers warm and go from there.
And you'll probably get some great deals on them coming up soon as we get out of winter, so you could get ready for next year already.
Absolutely. This is the time actually right now to think, hey, do I want to maybe upgrade my winter gear, get a good deal on some boots or something? I actually got this time a couple years ago, I got a great deal on some LL Bean boots, which I think are really good for walking around the woods, and they keep you warm. They've been around for 110 years. Nothing fancy, but they do the job.
All right. Well, thanks for that on the gloves. What do we have in the terms of listing?
So I used to know this DJ who played a lot of weddings, and he would say, when in doubt, play the hits. Don't stop believing, living on a prayer. How about a 1968 Chevelle? This is a Malibu. It went up. This is Friday, so it went up on Friday. It's available in Pine Bluffs, Wyoming for about $60,000. A car like this, you're definitely going for one of the most sought after cars of the muscle car era. That generation of Chevelle from like 68 to 72, it's iconic. It's frankly what you think of when you think of muscle cars. So really cool listing. I actually will probably beat this to death on future podcasts. I actually have a 1973 Chevelle. So the next generation, more of that kind of mid 70s vibe. I'm not great with the wrench. We're actually having sort of a guy kind of piece it back together. But so I like Chevelles, long story short. And you can check this and some of our other listings out. This weekend, I guess I'm coming to you from the past or the future. I don't know. We have a newsletter going out with some of our cooler listings. So, if you like it, let us know. Drop us a line. We'd like to hear more. You want more of these listings, more of them in the newsletter. We'd be glad to accommodate that. But hey, 68 Chevelle, happy Friday. Before you know it, it'll be time to do some cruising. We won't be talking about winter gloves.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to that weather with the winter we had. Well, thanks for joining us. We will talk to you again next week with some more products and listings.
Thanks, Mike.
Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house, and you're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease, and because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can handle, you start to think to yourself, you know what, I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks and struts, and this baby deserves a new air filter. So you head right back to eBay. You can find any part you need there, it's unreal. From wipers and headlights to cold air intakes, exhaust systems, and even that turbo you've had on your mind, eBay is the stocked garage of your dreams. And you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. Because eBay knows DIY fixes can be major, and mods are always intense, so you need to know that these parts guaranteed to fit every time before you dive in wrench first. And in the off chance you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back, simple as that. You know what you love more than the car itself is driving it. You're serious when it comes to engine maintenance, and you're locked in when you're headed into a build. And that's exactly why you start with eBay, minor fix or complete overhaul. You want to get your ride back on the road, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. So eBay created My Garage, where all you have to do is add your ride's info and get the exact parts that fit. When you see the green check, you're a click away from that part clicking perfectly into place. So now that you know all that, imagine standing at that open garage door looking at your car you love more than anything, knowing that anything is possible. Whether it's keeping it on the road forever or turning it into something that's never been on the road before. Because with eBay, your garage just got a whole lot bigger. Get all the parts you need at prices you love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love.
All right, welcome back. This week we have a special guest that I have known for a long time and knows a little bit about cars. If you could just introduce yourself and currently what you do, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Dave Pratte, as the text on the screen there says, and I co-founded and co-run a YouTube channel called Speed Academy, which, as the name applies, is sort of about performance cars. Peter and I, who founded the channel, used to work at a magazine called Modified, which is where I met some of the folks from AutoGuide. From there, the magazine got shut down in 2014, and we kind of wanted to keep doing what we were doing, which was really playing predominantly with Japanese cars and modifying them for performance purposes more so than, say, cosmetic. Though we still want our cars to look good, but our focus was more on like making them faster, making them perform better, making them make more power on the dyno, on the street, at the racetrack, that kind of stuff. And I have a background in motorsports, so that kind of is what led into, that sort of approach to playing with cars. And yeah, we've been on YouTube now for a decade, which is kind of crazy to think that it's been that long, but we're still doing it. We're still grinding away, and we're actually just in the process of adding a second shop space, to be used purely more as a studio, where we're just going to be building cars rather than our previous or current space, I guess you could say, which is both our YouTube studio, but also like a large space with a lot of car storage. So that space is going to be kind of repurposed for car storage and for a car dealership that we're also starting. So yeah, the business is evolving a little bit, but our focus is still very much on YouTube and producing our weekly Saturday upload. Saturday morning at 10 a.m. everyone, we upload a video, and it's generally following a current project car, although right now it's following the move. So our last upload was literally just kind of like showing our viewers our new space and what that's going to be all about.
So, a couple quick things. One, you don't build cars with turbos hanging off the side fenders or anything. You want them to still look like regular cars.
I mean, YouTube loves the craziest builds possible. So if we were better at YouTubing, we would build our cars with turbos poking out the hood and hanging off the rear bumper, or like I think Whistling Diesel just uploaded a video with like 17 turbos on his truck.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't even
so,
know how that works, but
if we were clickbaity YouTubers, that's what we would be doing. But we're old and kind of come from the magazine world where our focus is more on building like really clean looking street cars that can also go to the racetrack. That's sort of our focus. So no, our turbos go in the engine bay. We've never done a remote mounted turbo, although you can do those cleanly in like the rear of a Corvette, or there's cars where rear mounted turbos actually work well. Let's say a 911, for example, they're back there anyway. So we'll rear mount the turbos on those things. But no, we don't do outlandish clickbaity type of builds, which really is to our detriment from a views perspective. But we have to kind of be true to ourselves and really true to our core audience, who are, sort of a more mature audience. We mostly, when we have car meets and stuff, the guys that show up are sort of in their, mid 20s to mid 40s. So it's a more mature audience than you might see on, say, Whistling Diesel's channel or Adam LZ's channel or something like that. So, we catered more to those types of viewers, and that's really more who we are as car guys anyway. So we're really just being true to ourselves and building what we think are really clean, functional, realistic builds. We don't try to make 1,000 horsepower with everything. We're happy with 400 horsepower because, as you guys know, 400 horsepower is still a lot of power and more than enough to get you in plenty of trouble. So yeah, we don't chase big numbers, both in terms of horsepower or frankly in terms of views, but we do have a good solid core audience, and they'll watch pretty much whatever we do. So yeah, that's sort of been the name of our game. And there's certainly days where we think we should get better at YouTube and do a little more clickbaity stuff, do a little more outlandish stuff, but I don't know. Neither of us can really get excited about that. So we just keep doing what we do.
So it is funny how people don't understand putting 400 horsepower in a 30-year-old chassis is more than enough for that car. That those older cars weren't designed to take that. Well, usually we'll do this a little backwards. So we'll talk about YouTube since we're on the topic. You're one of, I can't even count the number of guests that have come on and talked about, you have sort of a second business starting, as you said, with the car dealer, which I'm intrigued to learn more about, because I think I know where maybe I'll buy my next car from. But yeah, because people who've been on YouTube as long as you and I, we've all kind of know it's not what it used to be, and the revenue's not what it used to be. Are you noticing that
that's
too?
True. Yeah, no, for sure. Our growth, both in terms of revenue and in terms of like viewership, is pretty flat, really, over the last couple of years. COVID was sort of a bit of a boom for YouTubers because everyone was at home watching YouTube. But since then, things have certainly flattened out for us. And I think that's pretty universal. All the channels that we are friends with and talk with are experiencing the same thing. And, revenues are down, if not flat, in terms of like ad share. And partly, I think, because YouTube just isn't generating as much revenue as maybe it was. But also, there's just more channels. So the money's getting spread out over more and more channels. So it's a more and more competitive space to be in. But luckily for us, we've always taken a sponsorship outside of YouTube approach first, which really kind of carries over from our days in the magazine, where, the only way a magazine functions is through ad revenue generated through those, wheel and tire ads that you see in car magazines, or used to see in car magazines. They don't really exist anymore, but we really took that model and applied it to YouTube. So we have sponsorship deals outside of YouTube with Continental Tire and Valvoline and Canadian Tire and lots of other brands. And it's that revenue really that makes our business run. And we integrate their products into our videos. Obviously, we try to do it in a, non-invasive, enthusiastic and, real way. But our audience is, obviously used to having integrations put in front of them, whether it's for, ball shavers or tires. So we're not doing anything here that they're not used to being fed. But it's that approach that's really made our channel financially viable. We couldn't live off the AdSense revenue alone, nor could really anybody in the automotive sphere of YouTube, because the overhead costs of running an automotive channel are extremely high. You got to buy cars, you have to have a space to work on them, you got to have tools, there's insurance, there's so many levels of spending involved in the car hobby. If we were running a cooking channel, man, the overhead's low, and the cost to run that channel would be, we joke that we should have started a cooking channel instead of a car channel, but your passion,
it's not too late.
It isn't too late. You're right. And I do
could be a
flip a mean
crossover,
burger.
like best food to cook at the track, what you can cook on a 2JZ
Right?
that's warmed up. It could be a whole thing.
That would actually probably do pretty well for views now that you mentioned it. Flame broiling a hamburger behind the exhaust pipe of a Supra that would make a good watch. But yeah, so I mean, that's sort of been our survival strategy, is to have revenues outside of YouTube. And that, of course, leads to the car storage business that we're starting and the dealership business that we're starting, which are all just ways for us to diversify and, frankly, make our jobs easier in terms of the YouTube part of it. Because with a dealer license comes access to wholesale auctions, comes access to a dealer plate, which means we can move our cars around more easily, and we get fleet insurance. So there's lots of benefits to having a dealer's license. So we're not really setting up the dealership to move a lot of cars. We're setting it up more to make our business, our core business of Speed Academy, easier and more financially beneficial. And there's levels to it too, where when you have multiple businesses, money can be moved in directions that are beneficial from a tax perspective too. So we're playing business games here, but that's
I watched
part
The
of the
Wire,
rationale
right?
behind it.
I know how you launder the money between businesses.
Yeah, exactly. It's
The Wire has an instructional video.
So, I mean, the dealership thing, because you do European cars, not the cars, but Japanese is a prominent one. There's a very prominent Japanese dealership that shut down recently. So it's not like there's a huge market for it, but at least there'll be some interest if you want to sell the odd car. And having solid revenue is pretty good at this time, because there's some sort of turmoil in North America in the auto sector. So, Canadian Tire and a local dealership are things that you may need to rely on more down the road.
Exactly. Yeah. With the more ways we can generate revenue, the better protected we are against the coming storm of tariffs or whatever else is going to be, taking down businesses. So yeah, that's certainly part of our thinking of it. But ultimately, we just wanted to be we buy and sell so many cars. We don't want to be curbsiders, which is to say illegal car dealers. So like part of setting up the dealership is also just to be within the law. And because we're relatively high profile, it wouldn't necessarily be difficult for somebody to go, wait a minute, you guys, I saw you sell 10 cars on your channel this year. Isn't the curbsiding law like 6 cars a year or something? So we just want to make sure we're playing within the rules. But there are benefits to being a dealership. Like I mentioned, the wholesale auction thing is a big one for us. Buying cars cheaper, good. Fix that car up, sell it for profit, also good. Make content and showing people how hard or easy it is to make money flipping cars that you're buying at wholesale. That may be a whole another stream of YouTube content for us. So we think there's a lot of good spin-offs from the dealership angle, and just makes our life a little easier than having to buy cars off of Marketplace. If you guys have bought cars off of Marketplace, it's a bit of a wild west out there. So the wholesale auctions might help there too.
Yeah, I'll sell my car through consignment with your dealer. It should make you, if I give you 10%, at least $3. So,
exactly.
There we go.
Yeah. And we probably will sell some cars on consignment. I mean, one of the things about being in the community that we're in is we have lots of friends and fans that have interest in cars, like, rare collectible cars that they might want to sell through us on consignment. Or we're also good car shoppers. So we have a lot of people who are like, hey, can you help us find a JDM S15 Nissan Silvia? I can't find one. We know a lot of JDM importers. We know a lot of car enthusiasts that might have one in their collection that are thinking about selling it. So we'll do some of that too, where we help people source cars, or we help make connections between car guys who we know one's a seller and one's a buyer. And, we'll charge a little money as a middleman there, but there you go. You want an SVX? Oh, you like to suffer. I see how it is.
I want one with the transmission swaps to take care of that problem.
Yeah, well, that's the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, that would be a good start. They're cool cars, though. I think they look amazing. I've never driven one, but I've always been fascinated by the style of them. And obviously that big flat six is pretty cool too. But man, not a lot of out there. But if you really want one, you can reach out to our dealership, which is going to be called Curated Automotive. I almost forgot the name of my own business. And the curated name was really chosen because we kind of thought of ourselves as helping people curate, cars like an SVX or an S15, like I mentioned.
It's specialized. It's not a typical dealer. So
exactly, we're not going to be selling, Kia Fortes and 8th gen Civics. We're really looking more for the car enthusiast who is looking for something very particular that could be hard to find. And if we come across cars in our little world, the little bubble that we live in here, that are cool and rare, and somebody is offering it to us, which often happens, we'll get emails saying, "Hey guys, I've got an NSX. I want to sell it. I figured rather than dealing with all the savages on Facebook Marketplace, I just offer it to you. Here's my best price." Typically we wouldn't buy that car because it's not in we try to plan our year out where like what cars are we going to build in the year. So if it doesn't fit in that plan, we wouldn't buy it. But now that we have a dealership, if that kind of offer comes along and the price is right, then we'll buy it and sell it through the dealership sort of idea. So, and we have, a half dozen of those opportunities come up a year. And as we do more of this, I guess more of those opportunities may pop up. We'll see. But it's just me and Peter. We're still a two-man operation, and we're kind of running 3 businesses. And YouTube is a full-time gig on its own. So there's only so many hours in the day. But if this business grows, then we'll hire somebody to kind of help on the dealership side. And the car storage business is much smaller than Matt Ferris, who I know you had on. We'll have room for, maybe a dozen cars in our shop once we move a lot of stuff to our new location. And we already have a lineup of Patreon supporters and local friends and fans who want to store cars in there. So that business will be very easy to run and not really high demand. But it shows you that there is demand for car storage. Like our space is a nice heated indoor space where you'd have access to your car easily. Doesn't have to go in there for 6 months at a time or whatever. And there's demand for that. So maybe we expand in that direction. If we see there's, we have 100 guys lined up and we only have 12 spaces, then, well, maybe we need to find another space.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, don't put all your eggs in the YouTube basket, I guess, is the moral of the story here. But it is still the focus of our business, and it is still the kind of the engine that drives it all. Without the YouTube channel, the rest of it doesn't really run.
Yeah, it kind of gets the name out there, right?
Exactly. It's our marketing tool. Like it's sort of like it's a perfect way to spread the word about what we're doing with the dealership, what we're doing with the car storage business, and it's obviously the reason we have sponsors, because they want their products put in front of our viewers. So yeah, it's but at the same time, the videos have to still be authentic. We still have to be coming from a place of real car passion and enthusiasm, which for Peter and I is not hard to do because we're both full-fledged car junkies. So like we're excited to buy and build as many, not exotics. We don't do exotics, but we try to do like some higher end JDM or European stuff occasionally, but we also try to do a lot of like very affordable, very relatable stuff. Like I just bought a Lexus GS 400 for $3,400 that is a survivor. It was undercoated religiously and is actually remarkably clean for its age. It's a 98. And we're going to kind of restore it, throw a supercharger on it, put a nice set of wheels and tires on it, lower it. I've got like a rare JDM TRD lip kit for it. So we'll do all the car nerd stuff to it. And it's a very affordable, relatable project that, is still a very popular chassis amongst Japanese car enthusiasts. So yeah, that's a sneak peek at a build we've got coming down the pipe for you, nice. I guess.
And you had big exhaust on that thing.
Oh yeah. Those 1U V8s sound great when you uncork them. So we'll put a big like 3-inch exhaust on it, and we won't go straight pipe because, the gray hairs and straight pipes don't really work well together, but we'll make it loud enough that you can hear me coming.
So we've talked a lot about current, but let's kind of go back to the beginning. So what got your start in cars? Is it something you did? Is it through family?
Yeah, basically through my dad. My dad was a car guy his whole life. And as a kid, I was sort of like out on the street playing street hockey, and my dad was in the garage rebuilding his MGBs or his C3 Corvettes. And he then got into newer and newer Corvettes over time. And then when I got my driver's license, I started to go to autocross events with him. He was autocrossing when I was a little kid, and I'd even go and watch him do that when I was a little kid. But my whole focus in life was to get my driver's license. So I went and got it on my birthday when I turned 16. And that first summer, I think my dad and I started autocrossing together, which was in his C3 Corvette. And I think, I was naturally pretty good at it. I think the second event I beat him at, and he then beat me at the third event and ran like a victory lap and stuck ice cubes down my shirt. And then he never beat me again. So that's kind of where my interest in motorsports and, first enthusiastic driving experiences came from, and just kind of evolved from there, where I wanted to do more and more of that kind of stuff. And to do that, you either drive your dad's car or you buy your own car and start to modify it for those types of events, which I eventually did. Starting with a DSM, I had a first gen Eagle Talon, excuse me, which I played around with quite a bit, sort of in the early to mid 90s. And then I got a Honda Prelude, which was the first car I really started to take to the track rather than just autocrosses. I started to take it to what was called Solo One back in the day, which is now turned into like being called Time Attack. So I was doing that in a variety of Hondas for quite some time, probably a decade or more. And then through that hobby of motorsports, I started writing for some car magazines. So there's a Canadian magazine called Inside Track, which I think is still in publication. I started covering the local Time Attack and Autocross series for that magazine. And I was getting paid like, I don't know, $50, $100 a story or whatever. It wasn't for the money. It was more for the fun and for the experience. So, I had to learn how to take pictures of cars. And I was in university. I had like 3 university degrees. I was actually kind of on the track to become a university professor. But then while working on my PhD, I got a job offer to go work at Modified Magazine. And I was kind of burnt out on academia. So I thought, let me take a year off from my PhD. I'm going to go work for this car magazine for a year. It'll be a fun way to travel around, go to the SEMA show, go cover some motorsport stuff, make a few bucks, and then I'll go back and finish my PhD. And let's see, 22 years later, I still haven't finished my PhD. So, I found my passion in a career path that made sense for me. So I didn't really look back, and I have no regrets about really going back and finishing that degree, because I wouldn't have had any use for it anyway. But yeah, that's sort of the weird journey that cars and motorsports took me on. It literally took me on a career path that I didn't really ever foresee unfolding. But luckily for me, it did, because I'm happily making a living playing with cars, which is, it sounds like a dream job to a lot of people. And there are days where it is a dream job. I've been able to go to the Nürburgring. I've been able to go to, the Isle of Man. I've driven the Nürburgring. I've driven on a bunch of famous, Formula One tracks, all a result of being an auto journalist or a car guy, content producer. Mm-hmm. But there's still days where it's, a job like any else, and you're just doing accounting or, dealing with the CRA. So it's not always a dream job, but I can't complain. I'm getting to play with cars for a living, so it's a win for sure.
Yeah, it's there are those tough days, like you said, but I mean, at other jobs there are only the tough days, so we still win.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have lots of friends that are in, difficult cubicle-based jobs in an office where you can literally see the soul being sucked out of everyone in the room. So
they come by midday every day and just with a little machine and just
they scan you to see how much of your soul is dead every day. Yeah. It's like the TV show Severance. They go to work and they literally shut off part of their brain because they can't deal with it. Where my whole life is cars, and there's pros and cons to that too, because too much of anything can be too much. So there are times where I feel I'm not super enthusiastic about turning a wrench again today, because I mean, as you guys know, working on cars can be soul crushing in its own way, because rusty bolts, rusty cars, oh, let me just remove this header. This will be a half an hour job. It's 6 bolts. And then, 3 broken bolts later, you're 8 hours into the job and your hair has fallen out because of the stress. So, cars are, there's a saying from the guys at Donut Media that cars are pain. And there's a lot of truth to that. So it's not all, fun and games, but the struggle is part of the journey, and it makes for good content. People love to see us struggle with rusty cars to, fight that fight and actually restore what was kind of a, destined for the scrapyard kind of car and make it good again. So, yeah, that's the upside to that struggle, is it does often make for good content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was doing some mods to the Genesis Coupe for the show, and the simpler ones I did, but when I got the Teen Springs, it's something I easily could have done on my driveway, but I thought, you know what, this is going to go to professional, because this is a 12-year-old Ontario car, and sure enough, they broke off bolts on all 4 corners and had to drill them out and get new bits, and I was like, yep, that's for you, I'll pay you to do that. I'm not touching that.
Yeah, no, and if I wasn't doing this for a living, I would have paid someone to do that kind of job too, because it's just punishing. And if you don't have the right tools, you don't have a lift in your home garage, like things can spiral on you pretty quickly, and you're having to make like multiple trips to Canadian Tire to buy, a torch, a propane torch, and a thread extractor, and a Sawzall. things can go sideways really quick. So luckily for us, over the course of building Speed Academy, we've been able to equip our shop with like all the best tools for dealing with rusty bolts and all the Canadian stuff that we deal with. So yeah, we are now like fully equipped to, tear down pretty much any rusty bucket you can throw at us. But it doesn't mean it's fun for us, but at least we have the right tools to get the job done.
Yeah. So traveling back a little bit about, you said something earlier about there are no regrets. And that's, I know you've owned some pretty interesting Hondas and other vehicles over the years, like a Type R, I'm still jealous of. So are there any that got away that you really regret? Because we ask this question for everyone who comes on the show.
Yeah, I do regret selling my first Integra Type R. It was an 01, so the last year of the DC2 Integra Type R generation, and it had a super rare red Canadian market interior. I think it was like one of 100 or so of those cars ever sold. So it would have been like a highly collectible car had I kept it, but at the time, I sold it kind of like in the 2007-ish era. Like at the time, the market, those cars weren't really worth anything. They weren't really viewed as being that special. Honda nerds loved them, but they weren't sort of like on the collector car radar yet. And so to me, it was just a fun car. I took to the track. I daily drove it for years, actually, from Hamilton to Toronto. I abused that car so badly that I actually decided to sell it, because I had a lot of sympathy for it, and get something that was more suitable for commuting to my job in downtown Toronto, which was with Modified Magazine at the time. And we needed a new car for a project at the magazine anyway. So I sold that car, but 10 years later, I was like, what have I done? I should have kept that car. And luckily for me, a good friend of mine had a Type R, not with the red interior, but still a championship white Type R of the same era, that he got sideswiped in, parked the car, got paid really well by insurance, parked the car and was planning to fix it, got his wife pregnant, never found time. So he sold it to me very cheap. I think it was like $4,500 he sold it to me for, just before the prices started to skyrocket on those cars. And Pete and I did a full restoration of that car. Excuse me. We fixed the body damage, painted it with a better than OE quality paint job, put all the best parts on it. And excuse me, now it's my perfect Type R. So I'll keep that car until I die, or until I'm financially ruined, whichever comes first. But yeah, selling that first car was certainly a regret of mine. And I mean, other than that, we've had a lot of cool cars that have come and gone, but we're kind of in the business of building stuff and moving them on, because there's just not enough space and time and money to keep and drive all these cars. So frankly, we even now have too many cars. We probably have 20 cars in our shop, and 10 of them could go because we never drive them. They're just kind of sitting there taking up time and space and money. So we're going to cull the herd a bit here, I think, as we kind of shift to wanting to free space up for storing cars for that business. But I don't know if there's any other cars that we've sold that I was like, God, I wish I had kept that one. The FDRX7 that we built, I really loved it, but it was right-hand drive, and I don't love right-hand drive cars in a left-hand drive world. They're just not that much fun to drive on the street here. So had that car been left-hand drive, I think it would have been really hard to sell it. Same with our Supra. We had a right-hand drive Supra that was an absolute work of art, but again, right-hand drive. So it was kind of like, let's move it on. And we sold it kind of at the height of the COVID madness too. So we got really good money for both of those cars. That market has softened quite a lot since then, as you guys know. So we were really lucky. We bought a lot of JDM collectible cars before COVID at pretty reasonable prices, and then prices exploded, and we sold those cars near the height of that madness. So we did pretty well on some of those cars. Our timing was pretty good, but that was just dumb luck on our part. We didn't think ahead and think, oh, this bubble's coming. Nobody knew that was coming, but we could see what was going on when it was going on, and so we thought, let's sell these while we can.
Makes sense.
So to follow up to Kyle's question, is there one you haven't bought yet or worked on that you keep eyeing and can't wait to do one day?
There is, Mike. There is. It's not an SVX, but it's kind of similar. A first-gen NSX is really my dream car. It's the one. I'm a giant Honda nerd, and it's like the one Honda that I've never owned. We've had an S2000. I've had Type Rs. You know, I've had CRXs and EFSIs and all the EG and EK and all the golden era stuff I've had. I've driven a few NSXs. We've shot a few videos of me track testing them, but I've never owned one. I've never, built one or modified one. And so that is very much the top of my like dream car list. It's the one that has evaded me so far. And honestly, I'm not sure that we will do one because they've become so expensive that it's kind of hard to justify. But if one comes along with like a broken engine, or maybe a sketchy history or something that is, 50 grand instead of 100 grand, then maybe we'll buy one. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. But they've become so expensive, it's pretty hard for a channel like ours to justify it, because we're really not a channel built around $100,000 cars. We're kind of a channel built around $5,000 cars. So I don't know how our audience would respond to it. Their core audience would watch it anyway. But in terms of it being more broadly appealing on our channel, I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this on podcast or not, but shitboxes is kind of what our viewers want to see. And an NSX doesn't really fill that. But yeah, for me, an NSX would be that one that I haven't experienced yet that I really want to.
You don't have to build it. It could just be a financial wise decision. You have 10 cars to sell, you told me. So you sell those 10, buy this one, you saved shop space, and you got like you throw a Speed Academy on the side, and now you've got a company car.
No,
so,
you're not wrong. I could buy one more as like an investment piece or whatever, but I actually really struggle with that. I'm not, even though I'm, in the business of owning cars to some extent, I really struggle with owning a car that I'm not going to drive. I don't like ornaments. I want a car that I'm going to use. So unless I can justify like having it there as something that I'm actually going to drive with some regularity, I don't love the idea of just parking money in a car and then having it sit there, because cars are meant to be driven, and they don't do well if you don't drive them. They often seize up, and they need to be driven. So especially an NSX, I mean, those things are remarkably reliable. There's lots of examples out there with 200 or plus thousand kilometers on them. They were a car that was driven a lot, and I'd happily pile the mileage on one if I could afford to, but it's harder now to justify doing that, obviously, since they're so expensive. Back in the day, I had a buddy offer me his NSX for 35 grand before he moved home to Hong Kong. This would have been about 2008-ish. And of course, speaking of things that I regret, and not buying that NSX is a huge regret, because that was the bottom of the market. It was a beautiful example. He put a ton of like really high quality parts on it. It was a steal of a lifetime. And had I had a crystal ball, I would have obviously bought it. But even not that long ago, 5 years ago, just before COVID, a friend with a supercharged NSX offered me his car for, I think it was 65 grand, which was a good buy. The car had a salvage title, but it was repaired well, was repainted. It had a lot of good parts on it. So it was still a good buy, even with a salvage title. But again, it wasn't a car that fit the channel well at the time. And my car buying at that point had to kind of fit what we were doing business wise. So it didn't make sense, but probably should have bought it anyway, because I could sell it now for 150, even with a salvage title. But it's
Like
wild
said,
how that's gone.
no-
We'll see though.
no one
Maybe the
has the
market will
crystal ball.
soften for those cars.
I don't think so. Well, maybe
I
when
don't
we're
think
all,
so
like,
either. I don't
in
think
our
they will.
80s, just like the muscle cars that were like Barrett Jackson, crazy
Yeah.
prices in the early
Yeah.
2000s are softening because all the owners are getting in their 70s and 80s and don't want them, and we don't
Yeah.
want them as much. But it's funny how you said no crystal ball, because when I was in a Subaru club around 2010, 2011, one of the guys sold his modified STI and bought a really nice example on SX, and it was like 40 or 45,000. And like in hindsight, that's nothing. But at the time, I remember thinking like, geez, that's a great car. But that's a lot of money. Whereas
Yeah.
he could have doubled it in 10 years, but no one knew that was going to happen for sure.
Exactly. And in 2008, to me, 40 or 35, whatever, was a lot of money. So
Mhm.
like, even though it was a great deal, it was still a lot to spend. And I mean, part of my problem is I'm a cheapskate. So I just like cheap cars. So it's always hard for me to part with a lot of money for a car. Because to me, like, I like a car that I can like go stick in a parking lot and not worry about somebody opening a door into it. I kind of like the freedom that comes with a shitbox. So,
Mhm.
and some of the cars that I've built, like my 77 Celica was just in Motorama in the Valvoline booth. And, we made that car way nicer than I would have made it if it was just for me to drive around and have fun in. But because we were doing it on YouTube and we wanted to do it the right way, we ended up making it basically a show car, even though I'm not a show car guy. I don't have time to go to show cars, nor do I have a lot of interest in it. But, and I do drive that car a lot in the summer, and it's got stone chips and stuff on it now. But we made that car way nicer than we should have if I was just going to beat around in it like I sort of originally imagined I would. But I don't dislike that it's nice. I like that it's nice, but it wouldn't have been the way I built it if it wasn't for YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kyle, do you have any last questions? I got one left, but if you have one, go ahead.
I'm curious, Dave. What would you give for advice for people who are trying to get into this scene in 2025?
Like the YouTube world?
Yeah, like the automotive-based YouTube world.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know what the right way to break into this space is now, because it's so competitive. There's so many channels. It's so hard to get traction, to get views now. I have lots of friends that have tried in recent years to start up on YouTube, and just despite producing really high quality content, they just couldn't find any viewers because there weren't a known quantity, and the algorithm is going to feed people things that get views. So it's like really hard to start from zero and have the algorithm show you any love. So, in our case, we were kind of lucky because we came from the magazine world and we started in 2014. We already had kind of an audience follow us from the magazine, and we had support from some manufacturers and stuff because we had those relationships. So we had a huge advantage. But now, I mean, I don't, honestly, it's such a tough space. I don't know what the best advice I could offer them is, other than come from a place of passion, like do what you love, because that is going to come across on screen. So if you're doing something because you're trying to get views or, trying to make money, rather than it coming from a true place of passion, that people will see through that very quickly. So like, you have to be super passionate about it. You have to be super dedicated to it. You have to upload regularly, because if you don't upload regularly, people will not find you. So you have to be really aggressive, I think, in the first few years. Upload a ton, learn lessons from that process. You will get better at it every day. It's not something you are going to be really great at right out of the box unless you went to film school or something. But there's a ton of great tools on YouTube and elsewhere to learn how to get better at this. So, and you don't need a lot of fancy equipment. Like, you could shoot it on your iPhone, and as long as you learn how to edit well and you have, your passion is communicated in the content that you're making, you can find an audience. I mean, we still see channels do blow up quickly if they come at it from a truly unique perspective, or they're like really good at clickbaiting, like our friend Whistling Diesel. But if you're not trying to clickbait your way to the top, you're trying to actually do something from a place of passion, then hopefully you're in a niche that is underserved on YouTube. Like I don't know, like you're an Alfa Romeo guy or something, and there's not a lot of Alfa Romeo content on YouTube, then, you know, maybe that works to your advantage. But it's tough, man. I don't know if YouTube is even the best place for car content creators to start fresh from. Like maybe it's better to start on TikTok, or maybe it's better to start on Instagram. I'm not sure, but it's not an easy hill to climb. That's for sure.
Yeah, we've branched out to many different video platforms because you're right, YouTube's not the only player anymore, and it's hard to be central. But I'm gonna have to now look to see if there's any Oldsmobile Alero channels, because maybe that'll be
right.
I can start one up on the side.
I was gonna say
tens of people would watch it. Tens.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, the Fiat 500L market is untapped.
Right? You know what though? Like, there's a guy called Ronald Fingers who has a good channel, and he started with a Fiero that he pulled out of a field that was a complete rot box. And who would have thought, like, does anybody care about a Fiero? But his channel probably has 500,000 subscribers now. Yeah, Mike cares about Fieros, but he's like the only guy. but he's really good at storytelling. He's really good at like sharing the whole process. And because his storytelling was so strong, it just drew you in and you wanted to follow along on this journey with him. And he was like a young kid when he started the channel, maybe 18 or so. So you got to watch him learn how to restore a Fiero and learn all the hard lessons. And he's an engineer and a smart kid and like into 3D printing and stuff. So he was able to apply a lot of his schooling to that project. But really it was his storytelling. And I think maybe that's the most important thing on YouTube now, is to be a good storyteller. Like if you can tell a story through the journey of your car build or whatever your project is, that I think is going to connect with the audience that in a way that has some sustainability to it.
Yeah,
I think that's all good advice. Sorry, Kyle, go ahead.
No, that's just, we both agree. That's great to hear.
So go check out Ronald Fingers, guys, if you're into Fieros. That build series is a good watch.
Well, thanks for your time, Dave, and I'm looking forward to hearing about this Speed Academy culling of the fleet yard sale, because I'm going to have to come up with my checkbook and see, because some of your builds have always been like, man, I'd love to have that. So yeah, we'll have to see that in the future. And as we've mentioned plenty of times, people can check you out at Speed Academy on YouTube. And we will pay attention to some of these future endeavors. I'm looking forward to the car storing and the dealership and all that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll keep in touch. And if you need a 2J swapped M3 or a 930 turbo or a Marizo edition GR Corolla, those all might be for sale in the near future. I don't know.
How about a V8 into a Genesis coupe? That's my dream.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be cool. I bet you there's V8 swap kits for that chassis. There must be, right?
Yeah, there is. I just think my Swiss cheese chassis might not be able to handle it with.
Yeah, get a clean one to start with for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot, and have a great week. And we will definitely be talking to you down the road, I'm sure.
Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks.
Welcome back. We once again have Colin Wood joining us for our second 2025 edition of the F1. We don't really have a name for this.
We should give it a name. We'll think up something clever.
Your auto guide to F1.
I like it. There you go. You apparently woke up earlier than I did this morning. You're already on the ball.
So, what are we here to talk about? I mean, we can talk about the first week for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I think we could do that, and then maybe afterwards, I think to talk about a little, predictions maybe of how the rookies will do. I guess it kind of depends on how you define rookie too, right? So some of them are kind of sort of rookies, but their bunch really are. So I mean, your guy Lando cleaned up.
He did, and he helped me clean up in my F1 fantasy pool because I have him as my double points guy, and I also have McLaren. It cost me a lot of my cap to put them in, but I also have some other guys that aren't doing so well, so I might have to do some trades. But I mean, it was dominant. I know people like he was being caught by Max at the end, but I think he was doing a lot of what Max always did, and he was just driving conservative and clean and keeping enough car that if he really caught him, he could pull away, and he kind of did. Like once Max got to a certain spot, he just kept him there. So
yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't think the Red Bull has the pace, but I was it was relatively close. It was a great race. I mean, I always joke. My father's always says that he believes that rain should be mandatory for Formula One races, because every there is no such thing as a boring rain race. It is always a great race, right?
Yeah.
Some of the dry races are not super exciting, right? Like there are ones where, there's a fun start and then you kind of get into a pace in the middle, there's managing, but the actual, rain makes it super, it was everything. Like there was there were crashes, there was things you didn't expect. There was, great racing. It was amazing. I wish, every race of the year was that entertaining. I was like, I wanted to put like a heart monitor on myself. I was actually like, my heart was racing just watching it at the end. So
yeah, it's especially races like this where it rains off and on. You have to see the tire strategy. I mean, Piastri may not share your father-in-law's opinion of it has to rain every race. I mean, it was crazy when they both hit that corner first. They both went flying off, and Lando got on clean, and Piastri got on just like he kind of got on clean, but he tried to build the speed back up way too fast and off. So going in, everyone thought McLaren would be a front runner, if not the front runner, and that it seemed like kind of like what Red Bull was, where even if they don't dominate qualifying, which they did do, in the race conditions they're up there. I don't know if you saw Christian Horner's comment on he's blown away at how much downforce and grip the McLarens make, yet they also have great tire wear management. He said like it's just you trade off one for the other, and it's not like he's saying they're doing something illegal. He's just like impressed that they're beating Red Bull in both categories, and it's like how can that be? So, but I mean, like what, the last 5 years you were doing that to everyone else. So
it's true. It's true. There's become a fun little Zach and Christian are getting a little snippy at each other now. I noticed there's a bit more of a rivalry going on there, poking. And I noticed that Zach's commenting about, how long before Yuki gets into the Red Bull seat? Because, Lawson did not deliver.
And Yuki should have been there. There's like a whole movement for it. And I mean, he has proven it. I mean, it's been a race, and we could see sprint qualifying so far today.
Which also did not go...
No, Liam was dead last, which when your teammate's second, I know it's Verstappen, so you can't compare yourself to him, but you shouldn't be last. And Yuki in the Racing Bowl made Q3, I think.
So
it is just a sprint, but that can lead to our next topic. But it is it's funny how Toto has been replaced by Zach, basically.
Exactly. You gotta have a new enemy, and you gotta stir the pot, right? So I guess if we're going to talk about. Sorry. Speaking of Toto, exactly. The rookies, right? Like I think it's how you dice it up. Like some people I've been calling Liam a rookie. I mean, he raced half the season for RB last year, so he's not really a rookie. So I don't think he technically falls in that group. And Ollie Bierman got 2 races last year, and Jack Doohan got 1. But like between those, so we've got Kimi Antonelli, Ollie Bierman, Jack Doohan, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Isaac Hadjar, right? So, first, I think we were originally going to have this conversation before the whole season started, but now we've seen a little bit of racing, and there were a lot of mistakes.
except for Mercedes, it was terrible for the rookies. Like, who was it that crashed on the formation lap?
I think it was Hadjar.
I mean, it's happened to good racers. Like, I think Sainz has done it. I think Norris, but it's still gonna be embarrassing. Your first corner of your first full-time ride, not even the first corner, before the race. It was not a good look. Hadjar looked. I don't follow F2 a lot, but my understanding is that like he didn't win the championship last year, but kind of through just some really bad luck that he had a really good shot, and so I had kind of higher hopes for him. And again, it could be a one-off. Like I expect we'll see better things from Hadjar. Jack Doohan had a crash. Ollie Bierman was, I recall, like he's been okay. And I think Bierman will probably do better. But I mean, like Antonelli, just like star of the class, right? Like, holy crap. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you saw, it wasn't on the race broadcast, but if you check around Twitter, whatever, you can see there's he cleared somebody near the end of the race. And maybe it was actually Hamilton, like around the outside of the final-ish corner in Australia. And it was wild. Like, it was like, holy crap. Like
blew me away. I was like, this is a talented kid, and to come fourth in his first race, and I think in the sprint qualifying here he's already done pretty well as well. So
yeah, he finished fifth on the track, but the penalty put him into fourth. It's, in fairness, he does have the best car, but Lawson's car should be just as good, and there was quite a gap between them. Like Bierman, he's in the Haas, which looks to be this lowest car. Like, it looks like even Kick Sauber's kind of passed him this year.
Yeah.
So if any of the other rookies ever crack the top 10, it's going to look phenomenal. But this guy needs to be in the top 10, but coming fourth, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, and did he? Oh, and he was just behind. Yeah, I guess just behind Russell in the Australia race, right?
I was going to say, like, came fourth, and the top two cars seem to be in a different league right now. So really, you only lost to your teammate who's been doing this in that car for years. So
yes. Yeah. It's
pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, things will get interesting, right? Like, I think Mercedes is. It's weird, like the way it's all played out. It seems like Russell is their temporary number one, right? Like, and I think that they're looking at Antonelli for the long-term future. So
I think they're looking at Antonelli as like the next Hamilton. You got this young kid who's just got talent, and if you keep giving him good cars. So before we let you go, just one little stir of the pot that we'll see how it plays out this weekend. But you didn't get to see sprint qualifying, did you?
No, we were just talking about this before I hopped on. I never missed this, and I woke up, time change, whatever. And I saw it. It was the first thing when I opened Twitter this morning, and the first thing I saw. So I was annoyed that I didn't get to see it. I watched the highlights because I thought I'd catch up, and I don't have time right now to actually sit down and watch the actual.
So just stirring the pot a bit, and it's something we all know it might have happened, and we were curious to watch for the season. Is Charles and Lewis were out on the track together, and just before Charles was about to do his flying lap, they both were. The team came on and said swap positions to give Hamilton more clean air, and he was kind of like, now? Like, we've never done this before. And he wasn't angry, but you can already kind of see it'll be interesting because you kind of have two number one drivers. And I'm sure Hamilton has some pull with his contract as to where he falls in that team. So, yeah. I've
been very curious to see how this will work out, because Leclerc has been their number one since he showed up on the scene, even when they still had Vettel. Like, it seemed it didn't matter. Like, Vettel was just like instantly, a second-class citizen as soon as Leclerc showed up at Ferrari. So he's been that way the whole time. He was that way with Sainz. But the Hamilton thing could, really mess that up. And I think it was funny. Well, I don't give, like you and I have discussed, a lot of credit to what goes on in Drive to Survive. There was something in this recent season about how, with McLaren last year, if they had they treated it as two equal drivers for too long, right? You really, most, I think, success comes when you pick a number one and you pick a number two, and that's it. It's very hard to have that. And I think Ferrari could be in that situation if they don't sort it out soon of, you could wind up where the guys are battling each other and costing the team points. So it's, we'll see. I mean, sprints are weird because we've seen in the past where the results actually from a sprint to an actual race are totally different sometimes. And I don't know if it's just the setup, if the team is just favoring one or the other, but it was like Austin last year. And I think it was Verstappen was like, I think it was, he like won the sprint and then came in fifth in the race. It was very different. So I'll be curious to see how, if the race holds up like the sprint qualifying does anyway. So,
well, it's the tires sometimes too, because in a race you got to use different ones longer, and sometimes your car's set up for mediums and not hards, and someone else's is like, I mean, we got to wrap this up. It's going long, but in Australia, the hards, a lot of people thought like that's not the tire you want, and then McLaren put them on and started just pulling away, and then everyone went to hards. But
yeah, I was surprised by that too, especially in the colder temps. So, but I'm stoked to watch some more Formula One this weekend. Got lots to tune into.
Kind of 2 races and another qualifying to go. And when people hear this, they'll know what have happened. So hopefully McLaren win too. Both races. Let's go.
Go Max.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
All right. Well, before we wrap up this week, let's just talk about what we have ahead of us. So this week I am driving a giant screen on wheels, the Lincoln Nautilus. I got lots of things to say. I'll wait till I get them all put together in a video and talk about it in a future episode. What have you been driving?
I have been driving the 2025 BMW M240i xDrive because we only get xDrives in Canada. It was a car that you booked a while back, and then we just swapped. So it's been a while since I've been in a 2 Series, and yeah, it's I also have lots of thoughts. So I mean, it has the inline 6, so I like that part.
Yeah. And then next week we both have Porsche Macan EVs, but we have 2 different trim levels to see, sort of like we did with the Cayenne last year, where we had 2 trims, and we kind of just a feature to see, what makes sense for what kind of buyer. We'll be doing that. And you're back on the road.
Yes, I will be heading to. I'm not sure if I can actually say where I'm going.
Okay.
Anyway, I will be driving a new Honda SUV that looks very. It's the Passport. I will be driving the Honda Passport. I don't know when the actual review will go live, but I will be driving it next week, and I'm very excited because it looks very rugged and different. And so, yeah, it should be a ton of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a vehicle I'm really looking forward to. With, like you said, what they've done. If they've capitalized on the Trail Sport Pilot I drove and made it even better, and I mean the looks are way cooler, then yeah, I mean this whole only body on frames can off-road is kind of, if you want to build your own homemade thing, but I mean the Grand Cherokee's been pretty capable for a while, so
yeah. So
yeah,
it should be good.
All right, well, thank you for joining us for the Auto Guide Show brought to you by eBay Motors. We will be back next week with some more reviews and features and guests and segments and all that good stuff. But until then, we'll see you later.
So long, everybody.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love.